Folks gotta eat. It was true in 2045 BC, and it's true today in the year of our Lord, 2045.
Is it really necessary for the rat to be at the meeting?
He is part of this team as much as me.
Kid,
we're hard as fuck.
I am in hell. I am in absolute
So
hell.
you're just gonna walk out into the open in front,
Wait,
in
are
front
you
of her?
moving? Oh my god.
Is that what you're doing?
I mean,
Good morning, Sprocket.
Does it kind of like pixelate out? Like
Tron?
Of course.
Yes.
The coolest iteration of it you can imagine is how it works. Come out with your hands up.
Can you tell him to fuck off?
our friend tells you to fuck off.
Which is to say, no, sorry.
But maybe you might be able to give me a counter-offer.
I'm scared by grenades.
Ugh, grenades.
It's a justified fear.
Yeah. Brain dance like that fetches a tidy price these days.
Who needs sex, right?
Bruh.
Yes, we all know what sex is like. Jeez.
Oh, collapses to her knees.
Oh my god.
Say it.
And Mr. Daedalus appears in the swivel chair, or at least the image of him does. He looks up at you and says, "Fuck."
Ain't that sweet?
I'm gonna kill you after this.
Real coffee.
Real Jay.
Kabuki masked version of Rach Bartmoss himself.
Holy shit.
It's a rabbit.
Holy shit.
Surrender now and we'll kill you quick, will we?
What do you think? People's boots are.
Drives straight and pure, straight through the glass window.
What's the story?
Tell us the story.
You realise you forgot to attach a piece of hardware.
On the other side, you just hear,
And takes out his sword and points the sword. Babe, you're good. Good. We're fucking bad.
Dos Vidania.
Straight through his neck.
I don't see bone either, but I'm not gonna look. My leg's fine.
I always knew you wanted to fly, kid. Come find me.
Hey, this is Roll to Cast, and this is Feed the Beast, the post-season Screamsheet.
Well, we got a lot to scream about, let me tell you that.
So I'm Phil, I am the GM, and with me are...
Chris, hello. I'm a player. I play Wax.
I'm Sean and I play Spitfire James.
Hey, it's Ellen. I played Sprocket Volkov.
Hey, so... this is our little show where we reflect back on the season that's just been, talk about some of our favourite things, and basically have a little discussion.
I mean, don't we all need a little bit of a debrief and just a breather after what a jam-packed season that was?
We'll also answer some of your questions.
Oh, I
we have
forgot about that
questions.
part. Yeah.
Questions,
We
comments,
sure will.
Comments? It's a question and a comment and a query.
It's like a cyberpunk. It's like a cyberpunk way of saying
Yeah,
comments.
it's like totally going to be in the lexicon
It's
in
kind
like
of
2045.
Like, how long ago did we start recording this? I was trying to remember, because we got the book back in April, May. We got it a while back. The actual physical copy.
We got the book. I can't remember exactly when we got it, but then I think it took me 2 weeks, maybe a month to write the campaign.
It was crunch time.
It was
Yeah,
quick. Yeah, it was
you were
quick.
churning them out.
I pumped out the setting in the campaign. I got a bit inspired, and then I can't remember exactly when we recorded. It was fairly early in the year.
Well, we just came from listening to our final episode of Rollcast, Feed the Beast, and I noted that in one of the recordings, Chris is clutching onto a blanket. And I remember because the studio was really, really cold.
Right,
so it
yeah.
must have been...
Which is like not what it's like these days.
No,
it's-
right in the middle where we just saw kind of our first 40-degree day of summer.
Yeah, we had,
Give or take.
around that.
Give or
Around
take.
that.
But I do remember
That's like
during
California.
recording, we were all like very bundled up, like trudging down the stairs, multiple layers, and like had a little blankie for comfort.
What is that, like 12 hours of recording over 5 days worth?
And we tend to record in these kind of 2-hour blocks. And I feel like that's a really good kind of chunk for the sessions. They keeps us focused and then stops us kind of drifting off into vagary at the end of that concentration period. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun to record, I would say. We had an absolute blast. As you say, there was a ton of action and stuff happened in this. We crammed a lot in, I think.
Yeah, a lot happened. We had a few net runs.
Yeah.
I mean, we explored largely nearly everything that Red has to offer.
Including Fresno.
Yeah.
Who would have thought, right?
It was good to do a game where we had driving as well, because I mean, I think heretofore all of our seasons have been largely people who can't drive.
Kevin was a masterful driver.
Kevin was a master driver,
He was a master driver,
That's
but
where
we
he
did-
put like all his stats.
Do we have a big driving?
In the prologue, yes, because
Yeah.
we got into a major crash.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys managed to... Yeah, in our vampire season, we had some driving.
Yeah, so I curated like a moment for our nomad character Sprocket to shine with their driving. I found a kind of a neat place to kind of slot that in. And modded a bit of the rules to add my own sort of encounter to it. But yeah, as you say, we did a bit of a tour of as much of Red as possible. I think, we were very excited to get the book and see everything mechanically. We've played 2020, our first season is 2020, and we were just really keen to see what was changed, what was new. And I was really keen to just put as much of that stuff into the game as possible. So we had net running, we had tech upgrading and fixing on the tech running, fixing stuff on the fly. We had nomads with their both socially there. We explored a bit of nomad society and also the driving itself. I think the only kind of thing we didn't do too much of was kind of melee combat and martial arts. Something we kind of missed.
The melee combat we did though made up for it. Wouldn't you say?
Oh my god!
I think what's kind of interesting is when we start covering things that we did, that like little secrets or things that didn't make it into the campaign. One of them was Sprocket's well versed in martial arts.
Oh yeah,
Aikido, right?
Aikido.
Yeah, we never got to that.
Never got to that.
Never got to use it.
It's almost like a game with guns kind of limits your ability to fight hand to hand.
Did anyone else have any stat or anything that didn't particularly get used?
No, I got everything out pretty much.
No one had like stock market or economics or whatever it is.
No.
I know mine
finance.
was the thing that I didn't get to explore, which may come up in sometime in the future. Was I really wanted to look at cyberpsychosis. I deliberately decked him out to a point where if he added one more thing, potential for
start of depersonalizations.
Problems. He had an empathy of 3. Just.
What was his initial empathy? Because that has
6.
a bearing. Yeah, so that has a bit of a... If you look at the rules for cyberpsychosis, your initial empathy has a bearing on how badly and how quickly you go into cyberpsychosis. Because your original empathy is 6, yes, it's down to 3 and you will start to depersonalize, but it's not as bad as someone who starts at empathy 2 and then starts...
Yeah.
So those are your sort of Maelstrom gangers. They already are low empathy people. They're already kind of brutal and psychotic kind of personalities. And then they start filling themselves with chrome and they sort of very quickly lose what humanity they have.
Yeah.
But I think what's more interesting is this subtle kind of gradated change, which I think is something that you can look at a character long term.
Yeah.
I'm kind of okay that it didn't come up for Spitfire within this campaign.
Well, it didn't really and that was like the other thing as well, is that there was a few things in his backstory that didn't really get touched on. One of them really was like Grammar herself, which was his grammar.
Yeah, I thought you said grammar.
Well, that's her.
His grammar was atrocious.
That's her name,
nickname is
yeah.
it's
right.
Grammar.
Yeah,
right.
Like an
and
American accent.
Grammar was mentioned once.
Yes.
And it was never seen, which is great.
Yeah.
I also wonder if the reuniting of Spitfire and Jane kind of helped, Spitfire with that kind of empathy, because I like his detachment from society makes total sense with, his parents being corpse and having to scavenge and then losing the person who means so much to him, and then he kind of becomes this little recluse who just kind of talks to Teg, and then this beautiful moment of reuniting with his loved one. I'm like,
Aw.
Spitfire just kind of slowly turns to look at Wax. His eyes are just wide.
And then you hear a female voice, James, and you see a woman come out from the shadows. Z-Man's like, the fuck you... Oh, shit.
No.
Z-Man comes out from the shadows, and a gruff, older fella with roughly hewn stubble, graying stubble around his face, and from what you can tell so far, a seriously underdeveloped sense of humor, approaches the top of the ramp. With him, a woman with jet black hair, which is slowly lightening to a red, which is intensifying over the next few minutes. To the shade, very similar to the one that Spitfire likes to wear.
That was actually my favorite moment of the entire
Really?
series.
Oh.
Because it's something that Sneaky Phil, he made it appear as, because I went, I don't know if you'll get a chance to use it, or but I've got this,
say that.
I've got this character and this is the backstory, man. And he's like, oh, well, like that's really cool. It's always good for us to have that. I can't promise it'll be in, because I've got things sorted. And then, motherfucker, it was like right there as soon as we went to the hot zone. I'm like, you got me.
Gotcha. You sly dog. That was such a wonderful moment, especially like how much detail you managed to cram in with. You don't need a declaration of, oh my God, you're back. I loved you. I missed you. The change of her hair, which is something you can do in Cyberpunk, this idea that you can have hair and skin that changes, your mood, that signifies, oh my God, they're together at last. It's just, it's so good.
Yeah, I think I was really aided by Sean giving me a very clear idea about both his character and his relationship to this NPC. And when a player gives you a gift like that, it's really stupid not to use it. Yeah. I think, and that I think because he was so well informed and informed me so well, when I brought that character in, we could quite naturally give them a scene without it being kind of hokey. They just sort of come back together and they just sort of find what they have. And I was kind of nervous about putting this in because it's quite a light, happy moment, right? And it's not something you necessarily associate with Cyberpunk.
Yeah, and also just, we haven't done a lot of kind of romantic... Well, because I know we had in 2020, we had
it's more of a tryst.
Yeah. There was a tryst, but this is our first, I think, proper romantic storyline in terms of like a partner.
Yeah,
it's less of a burning love and more of a partnership, as you say.
Which is something that I was interested in pursuing and seeing kind of how that would turn out.
Yeah, it was.
Can we handle love?
Well, yeah, because like Cassie and Amelie, that was more like the thing that got away, the thing that could have been.
Yeah,
but I noticed like when Jane came back into Spitfire's life, he had something to lose again. And I don't know, for me, just like watching you control Spitfire, the stakes were definitely there. Like every combat, you were always kind of checking in with Jane.
Oh,
when she got shot, you were like, oh my God.
I fully expected Phil to kill off Jane.
I mean, I wasn't pulling my punches.
Yeah, I was like, if you, it's like if someone killed off Vlad.
A lot.
If someone killed off Vlad, I'd walk out of that door right now.
Thank God you didn't have me as the DM in that instance.
Yeah, that's right. It's maybe I'm a little too soft on you.
No.
But I think it's reflective of Red, that there is an opportunity for a little bit more stuff, have things that are precious and good in your life. But also, as you point out, that means you have more to lose, right? And it just adds a bit more weight, I think, to it. It's less just kind of reckless and freewheeling. It's like, oh, actually, we have something now. Oh shit, we don't want to lose what we have. And I kind of move on from what's in there, like mechanically and what we use. I think that's a nice way to talk about the world of Red and how we found the setting and how we responded to kind of this whole new reset on the world.
Well, that's it especially, isn't it? It's like how we kind of had to view this game, not only as a game within itself, but coming off, we have played 2020 as well, so we got a very visceral difference and an experience between those two systems and the two settings.
Yeah, I think for Phil, what you're talking about with the setting being very different, Red is a necessarily more hopeful game in that you can earn and have things. I think the Jumpstart kit starts off with you defending your terrace block, and in that is the implied ability to do that from co-ops, and also the idea that you have left your mark on the world already in some small way. You're not just edge runners who are trying to get the upper hand, say in 2020, where you've got kind of nothing to lose and everything to gain, and let's burn out in a hot fire. But there's a slight more, I don't know, a greater sense of you need to preserve. There's hope in this, and you can get out alive and you can win.
I think for me, the linchpin of it is community. Okay, and that, as you say, you're defending your apartment block, and you have relationships with the people in it. So if you read the Jumpstart kit, it says like get your players to role play with the other residents of the block. Get them to fall in love with them a bit before you then threaten them. And I think, as you say, that's emblematic of what they want. They want the thing that you have to be this sense of community.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's not missing in 2020, but that's everyone feels unanchored. Everybody feels like thrown together by chance. Whereas this is like, actually, this is my family, and this is what I have to fight to protect.
I think like it came together perfectly with Us in Heaven, because it's a home. It's a sense of family, and it really kind of gave us all stakes and gave us the idea of there's a life here. I know in 2020 it was like like the experience was like guns blazing. Like everything you do is, I mean, it's part of the name, right? You're an edge runner. You are on the edge. You are on the precipice. Cyberpunk Red feels like a place where you can put down roots. You still got to fight for those roots.
I feel like one thing, and I had to describe this to someone the other day, which is 2020, it definitely had that feeling of these are characters that kind of know that they're going to die. Like they know that it's not going to be necessarily the happiest of endings for them. So why not go out in a blaze of glory with two middle fingers in the air? Whereas in Red, there's definitely that sense of, oh, it may actually not be the worst case scenario. We have an opportunity to make a mark and still be alive to preserve that. So
could be one up from the worst case scenario.
What are we going to do?
But I also want to like point out how perfectly they fold into another. You know, the edge runners burnt out because 2020 was burning out. Something had to change, and from that kind of birthed Cyberpunk Red. And you know, I think both are really such interesting games to kind of get into the nitty gritty. You know, it's really fun to play a character who's like, yeah, I am aware that this is the end for me, but what an end, I'm going to make it. But then it's also so fun to then have this kind of renewed sense of hope and you know, building something that lasts.
I think that's a really good point, Ellen, about how the shift in tone is handled in the kind of the narrative link between the two. So what you have is, as you say, something has to give, right? And 2020 is burning red hot as the corporations, you know, vie for ever more control. And what happens is this fourth corporate war, which basically nearly destroys the whole world as these two global corporations fight globally. They fight everywhere. And then what happens in Night City is that someone sets off a nuke downtown. So we have this totally blasted city where everyone's had to flee the center. Everyone's crammed into the suburbs. And because the whole world's fucked, it's taken, 25 years before people even beginning to start to put it back together. So you get this real sense that everything had to kind of blow up for this opportunity. It's sort of like the forest fire, right? You're raging through, it's California, I guess, raging through, and then new life coming from underneath. That's the kind of sense that I get with it, that the end came, but unexpectedly out of that end, new shoots grew up.
I know you were talking about the fourth corporate war and kind of how that plays in terms of the lore branching 2020 from Red. Isn't there another part of the lore that kind of factored into one of your favorite moments from the series?
Yes. So this is a great way of they married both the mechanics and the setting. So one of the reasons we have cool new networking mechanics is because the old net is totally inaccessible because of these amazingly cool evil AIs called rabbits.
All I wanted to know. And he hits a button on his deck, and materializing from the feet upwards is a figure in a 3-piece suit.
What?
Glowing incandescently. As its face appears, it is the unmistakable kabuki-masked version of Rach Bartmoss himself.
Holy shit.
It's a rabbit.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That
Holy
is
shit.
the correct fucking response.
As in...
is holy shit.
As in the Bartmoss that basically left a whole virus in the net that fucked
the author of the data crash itself.
Yep.
Holy...
Here he is.
So every so often, as a GM, you write something in your campaign, and then you're just like, you're sitting on it. And you're just like, when's this going to come up? How's everyone going to react? And that was totally that for me.
That's 5 holy shits.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't have asked for a better reaction. It was fantastic. I based a lot of the campaign around the net running because the net running's new. It's a streamlined system. It's as I was saying, they've reworked the mechanics so you have to be there, right? You have to be there in the net, and that's because the global interconnected net is fucked because of that guy. Raish Bartmoss, he was a master netrunner in 2020, and so the rumor goes is that someone dropped a rock on him from orbit. And
What?
Yeah, that's right. That's the only way they could, like, someone located his base where he
He's, like,
lies in
hiding out.
like where he
Yeah,
lies in
yeah,
a bath
yeah.
They
connected to the
threw
net.
a meteorite at him.
Dropped a rock on him.
Jesus Christ.
That's what's said, yeah. And then his kill
Rocks fall, everybody dies.
That's right. That's pretty much what happens to Red, yeah. And that releases his kill switch, which releases the rabbits, which are basically pieces of his personality that can burn your brain out in a second, and they're all over the old net, and that's why we can't have nice things anymore, and we're all on localized nets. And learning that and reading that and saying, well, I've got a netrunner, I'm basing it on netrunners, like, we've got to have ration here.
Yeah.
We've got to have a rabbit.
I have his memory. Wasn't there something around that you didn't... The way Chris as Wax handled Bartmoss wasn't exactly how you intended, or there was something in the way that he
Yes.
dealt with him that
Oh.
flew against what you'd expected would occur?
So I kind of expected him to be like, oh shit, I'm going to get away, or I'm going to fight back, or I'm going to refuse. And
You didn't expect him to say yes.
No, I didn't expect him to say yes.
Really?
And at that point, the Wings prototype would trigger, protect him, and dump him out of the net, right? And
So
that's
he found Wings a
trigger
lot-
the message.
He found Wings a lot later than he should have.
So he found out that his deck had a prototype of the program on it hidden later than I intended. So the message was triggered by the fact that he met Raish at all, or met the rabbit at all. But yeah, the hidden program was something I had to sit on for a bit longer. But that's just emergent gameplay. That's really cool.
I would have never guessed that. I would have never... I mean, like, this is the wonderful thing about role-playing. Building a story together. But that moment, that whole scene with the Bartmoss rabbit, the room was so tense. Like, what a wonderful piece of horror that can emerge from dealings, in the net. And we say Red is a hopeful game. It's also terrifying. Yeah, just the description and oh my god, yeah.
I mean, what if Wax had have done what Bartmoss had asked and released him onto the net? Did you account for that?
So
Rocks fall, everybody dies.
I mean, that's kind of outside the scope of the game, but it would have it would have long-reaching consequences.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if he'd done that, it would have affected future campaigns that go on from this, and he has his own unknowable agenda.
Yeah, I think Wax becomes the villain then.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't really expect him to go through with that, and I think the rabbit kind of knows that too. He probably knows that you're not that stupid, but like he could maybe use you in some other way. He's very crafty,
But
right?
yeah,
and it's fun for him to manipulate you.
It's that thing that creates stakes and tension where you have two characters who are completely knowledgeable about the fact that either one of them is looking to dick them over at any given opportunity, but knowing that maybe they will be able to slip up once enough for them to get a good shot in or manipulate how things are played. And I think it really speaks to the way that you were playing Wax, Chris, as well, that this is a guy who is cool, calm, collected, and he wants to see how the kind of cards fall.
Bruh.
Yeah, it really brought out that aspect of you. Just like, I'm going to stay cool while I shit my pants.
Yeah.
And that was great. And I think the way you guys react and the way the kind of, you talk about the stakes, there doesn't have to be explicitly put out because you rely on something that is really prevalent in the cyberpunk genre, this cyberpunk world that RTG have built, and that's reputation. Right, you don't need to explicitly lay out what this guy's capable of. Everybody knows his name. And that is enough from our shared understanding of the lore that the reaction kind of comes naturally from that. And I think that's a really nice kind of thing that comes from having a really rich setting that everyone can kind of share and inhabit.
How did everyone feel after the campaign's over?
Well, I mean, I think listening back to it,
Yeah, we listened to the final episode as a group before we recorded today.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But that's how I felt. Like I felt like, what a wonderful exhalation of joy, of victory, of doing something hard, but knowing that there's still so much more to do. Like, I remember our finishing moments of 2020, which was still an exhalation, but it was more it was very emotional, very fraught. It's the thing that comes with, you have nothing to lose, and still you lost
everything.
Still you lost a little bit more.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to our Cyberpunk 2020
please do it.
campaign, go listen to it.
Yeah.
Season 1 of Roltercast.
And our vampire one, which, it was this sense of dread, and it was kind of coming out of that, but still knowing that so much is scared, like so much is still out there to fear. Whereas this was like, we got one in. We did it, and we're coming back home, and it felt so joyous.
I must be doing badly as a GM.
No.
Let them win.
For Sprocket especially, you talked about kind of the character. I remember you talked about this off air with me, like the character growth between where she starts up and where she ends up, and how that was kind of something that was very integral to your joy.
Yeah, well, because one thing in 2020, we all played kind of, your edge runners are kind of on the younger side because no one lives to a ripe old age
of 30.
In 2020, especially if you're an edge runner. Maybe if you're a successful corp and you have your own little...
Live in Beaverville.
Yeah, you have like your own little panic room and everything. And so while we were still playing kind of like younger people, they all felt old. They felt like they had all these lived-in experiences. Yeah, they were much more gritty. And like with the world of Red, I was like, I want to play a teenager. I want to see what growing up in this world would do to a person, because 2020, you get grizzled real young, real fast. You either keep up with the world or you get got, and you don't make it that far. Whereas Red, there's a sense of hope, there's a sense of excitement, of learning, of even a little bit of naivete can probably foster in this world. And so with Sprocket, I think it was so fun to go from a character who's totally, she's a badass, but she's also been a little bit sheltered by her family and the kind of life they've been living in the circus. And so joining Heaven and going from someone who's like, no, yes, please leave or we'll have to shoot you. Sorry. To then, I think you're about to play it, Sean.
Whatever do you mean?
The badass that she truly became.
I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, who am I kidding?
Ladies and gentlemen.
You get a spider damage.
This is her moment to be the circus performer she was never quite good at being.
Beating people to death with a sledgehammer.
If you imagine their head...
What is it?
You absolutely destroy the arm that they reach up to defend themselves. They reach up their arm and you just cleave the sledgehammer through their elbow, completely destroying the arm.
It's a snake eyes, by the way.
Yeah.
You have no arm now.
Is anyone else worried?
I wanted to do the melee.
That's the most terrifying moment of the podcast for me.
But yeah, it really showed like, no, this has solidified for Sprocket. This is her family, and she's ready to fight for, the people that she's kind of accepted into her life.
Yeah, she doesn't like become like more like cynical or like dark in that way, but she gets her feet under her. She talked about early on that like I asked a couple of questions while we were doing a bit of downtime stuff in Heaven, exploring the kind of faction base, and I'm like, what kind of gets at Sprocket? What unnerves her? Because you were very just sort of brash and best foot forward.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, she's actually kind of insecure behind this, and she worries that she's not as cool or as capable as her friends, who she regards as being like just really with it and really capable. And then by the end, she's like, yeah, I can mix with these guys. This is totally where I belong here.
Yeah.
I belong in this team. And I'm capable of holding my own and fighting for what I believe in. So it's really good to have her lose her naivete, not to cynicism, but to confidence instead. Yeah.
Yeah. She's become a kind of a little bit of a hero in her own right. And I think it's something that is still kind of relatable because she's a teenager. Her insecurities come from she's trying to figure out who she is and where she fits in this whole world. And so I thought that was a really fun story to tell that heretofore hadn't really been dealt with in the characters I've played.
Is she the youngest Rollcast character?
Yeah.
She is. She's 16, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was. I remember we actually didn't realize how young she was until we had the sex conversation.
I think it was the sex talk where, she's not had sex yet. Or as Phil says, oh no. She's
very
fine.
sweet.
She doesn't know what she's missing.
Yeah. Yeah, but she's a sizable 16. She ain't no waif.
Oh no, she's like built like there's like a Russian power lifter that I actually based her physique on, and this girl's quite young as well. She's not 16, she's 19, but she is big, like muscles, like maybe not like Arnie, but like she's really
ripped,
tanked up, and then but she's also got this very young face, and I was like, wow, this is the character I want to play.
Yeah,
it's funny because people talk about playing against type personality wise. They talk about, hey, I want to do a character that's a bit more further away from me now that I've got a few under my belt. But playing someone who's sort of physically different from you can be just as much of a challenge or just as much of a sort of interesting departure, because how big you are and how strong you are and what you're capable of physically really affects the way you interact with the world.
Yeah, Ellen's like, what, 5'4"? You're short.
We've realised that I don't know how to use the...
That's fair. That's fair. I think I'm the only one that uses the feet and inches scale.
Oh,
yeah.
But if you want to see photos of how tall Ellen is, go to our Instagram page.
We have a banana for scale. It just comes up to my ankle.
I was going to say, you just half the banana?
Yeah.
I was trying to think of a good segue, but I can't. Hey, Chris.
Yo.
What's a? I was like trying to see. Here's my thing, right? I was trying to go by the last word used, and I was like, how do I use split to splitting my focus over to Chris here?
Let's split off this topic.
What is actually a favorite moment from Red that you particularly enjoyed that I may or may not have a soundbite for?
I was up all night editing. I don't remember what I sent you last night.
Oh, right. You didn't send me anything.
What I suggested then.
Hammer.
Hammer time was a great moment. Loved Hammer time.
I'll just go play
Just
that.
play it. Just play it.
No, in the elevator.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Hammer time.
She's going to try and smash it.
Absolutely, she would smash it.
So she's probably just going to use does the butt of a gun count as melee?
Use the sledgehammer, Ellen.
Use the sledgehammer, Ellen.
In an elevator?
The sledgehammer, Ellen.
Of course it can.
One
There's
person's
only room to swing it.
One person's on the ground.
Well, I think elevator, and I think, an elevator.
It's
Close.
not it's not tiny.
Okay,
Use
if
the
there's room to
sledgehammer.
swing it.
Oh,
all right.
yeah. I mean, there's 5 of you. Make everyone stand back.
Okay, yeah, she runs her hands, feels it, kind of looks around, and then just goes both hands to her back, pulls out the sledgehammer, and then just
roll damage.
14 damage.
Well, that's a start, yeah.
I think that was also the moment where, was it everyone just
Everyone
passed
passed
Everyone
out,
passes out,
and then
yeah.
everyone was coming to, and then new people were passing out. It was a fun time.
We had a lovely comment on our YouTube channel where someone has said, use the sledgehammer, Ellen, by everyone. And Ellen is surprised Pikachu face
yeah.
in response.
So hopefully if you're listening to this, you've listened to the series, because otherwise, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Go
I
listen to
want to
it.
start
But
with
this
the
is-
postseason.
That's right. But this is one of the traps that are available in the net running section of the book. There's a bunch of environmental traps that you can attach to the net, and one of them is a sleep gas elevator. And I was like, oh, yes, I'm using that.
Because you specifically ask us, do we
Yes.
all go in the elevator?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's one of those situations where you have to very carefully ask your players to clarify something without letting
tipping
the
it.
glee come out of your voice that they're about to walk into something.
Are you?
Are you sure? Who's going in the elevator? Tell me now.
Not Eugene.
So I felt like maybe the audience can kind of pick it up, but the players certainly didn't. So that was okay.
When I listened back to it, I was like, why am I such an idiot? He's
Yeah.
asked us for it all going in. I should have said no.
To
all
be
that
fair,
didn't-
we're the same group of people that didn't realize pointing
Jane
to your
and Nod.
teeth was vampires. So.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were telling the story. You don't get points for
That's
knowing
true,
the
that's
story
true.
you told.
Oh,
God,
dear.
yeah, that was such a. I mean, really, who once used the Sledgehammer Ellen merch?
But to
So
me,
why did you with the Pikachu face on it?
the two shirts from Rolltacast needs to be just bruh,
Bruh.
and use the sledgehammer Ellen.
So why did you pick that particular moment?
I don't know. It just felt like a really nice out of character moment. It felt significant. It was just a nice bit of role playing. It was fun.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing, because a lot of our moments generally come from the kind of, because what we do at Rolltacast is we do, you know, the role playing narrative side, but then you also get a peek of us playing the game, us as people, as players. And so, you know, sometimes there can be really beautiful moments that come out of game because we're all kind of sharing this experience. And that was a wonderful thing where it's like you're all encouraging me, not Sprocket, to like figure out the scale of an elevator. It's also where we realize our differences in perceiving. I'm not good with spatial awareness.
Well, you could just I just figured you could shorthand it, right? You don't need a full overhead.
I like the idea. that the next day Ellen goes into an elevator with a sledgehammer. Like, I was right.
I can swing this.
Do this.
You assholes.
But boy, did I try.
I think it might be good to see what kind of questions and things have come up from the community at this
They're like,
point.
why didn't you use
Chris
the
with the mailbag.
I have one question.
Okay,
Great.
that's great.
Great.
Well, here's
We'll
the thing.
answer that question.
Here's the thing. So
4 times.
we did receive a lovely review. So thank you to the person who reviewed us on iTunes. If you haven't reviewed us on iTunes, please do. It helps us a lot. It signal boosts us in the iTunes community, which means we get seen in front of more people. We did receive a lovely question.
Feed the algorithm.
Feed the algorithm. A person who has been touting us as the best podcast they've been listening to, which is very kind. Thank you so much.
Oh, they're so correct.
I don't know if they wanted to be identified or not, so I'm not going to, in the interest of better, but also you can just like send us a message and be like, yo, it was me. Anyway, their question is, did Diamond Age by Neil Stevenson influence your writing for the Dreamers, Phil?
So this was really interesting. So Chris previewed me this question a couple of days ago, and I was like, so the answer is no, but also yes.
Subliminally.
What
Yes,
a great
that's
answer.
right. So it was like not consciously. It's not something that I was directly thinking about when I wrote this. And The Diamond Age isn't a book I've thought about for ages.
I've never heard of it.
But it's a book I absolutely fucking adore. I love that book. And I think it's like one of my favorite books I've ever read, and I haven't read it for ages. So Neil Stephenson's probably slightly better known for Snow Crash. I don't know if you've heard of, and it's read Snow Crash. Snow Crash is great. It's about a badass pizza delivery driver. His name is Hero Protagonist. No shit, that's his actual name.
My parents had a good sense of humor.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, he's like a badass delivery driver, like in this like weird dystopian future where if you're like he drives this like super powered sports car, because if you're like 5 minutes late on your pizza delivery, like that's your pay docked and stuff. And it's all about this kind of transcendental trip into cyberspace eventually is what it becomes about. And the Diamond Age is not quite so crazy. It's pared back, but it has, I think for me, it was the earliest kind of speculative sci-fi fiction with science fiction with a kind of utopian bent to it, right? So the Diamond Age is about humanity approaching this kind of post-scarcity point where we can like build things out of nanotubes and we can start to make like gestalt consciousnesses and stuff. So it's about this idea that we can leverage technology to make something better for ourselves and not just crawl ever closer to this dark dystopia. I mean, the world in the Diamond Age isn't perfect, but there is like the possibility that we could maybe, reach the Star Trek future. And I think, yes, maybe that was, that has influenced me over the years and what I like about science fiction and speculative fiction. And that would have bled into it as well. There's also a really good aspect that isn't in that, which is the primer for girls, which is I think it's in the Diamond Age. There's like a whole ship of Chinese orphans who have been just like offshored. No,
keep going. No, it just spiraled me. I was like, excuse me, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
A ship of Chinese orphans.
Yeah, so
continue.
And someone I can't remember how this comes about. It's a long time since I read it, but someone is trying to find a way to educate these kids, and so they make this primer, which is a interactive AI controlled book which educates you on everything you need to know about life.
Oh, I need this.
And it reacts to you and teaches you how to for everything from self-defense to conflict resolution, everything, right?
That's amazing.
So
it's really cool.
It's a better Google.
Yeah, it's a Google.
It's a Google that gives you good answers.
Yeah, it's a Google that shapes you as a person,
Yeah.
right? And it's sort of like the young primer for girls or whatever. And I think the idea is that these Chinese girls have been because they're not the male children,
Yes.
they've been sort of
Yeah.
gotten rid of. And this is gives them a potential start in life to to make a. And
That's
I
awesome.
think the AI giving people a way forward, a better way forward, is really cool, because I think most of the time in fiction, AI is evil and nefarious. And it's not something we touched on much, but something I've talked with John about, as he might be running a game from heaven, is that for me, the AI in heaven are, at least to a larger degree, benevolent. They're partners in the project, which I think is really cool.
We have some lovely reviews which we've received in the last month, because my review counter doesn't go back that far.
Oh.
If you want it to, go to our Patreon so I can afford to buy the review counter. So thank you to...
Sole reason we have Patreon.
Zakio, probably the best is the title of this review. This is probably the best cyberpunk tabletop role-playing game podcast out there. Thank you very much.
Aw, thank you.
And at the juncture,
Probably the best.
worth mentioning that that's lovely, thank you, but we're among very esteemed company.
Yes.
High Shelf Gaming, Dark Future Dice, John, Rob Mulligan, all out there making great cyberpunk content.
Yeah.
That's right. And one more from Pac-Man 1190. Great story podcast. Great podcast to listen to. Great podcast to listen to, getting interesting cyberpunk stories while waiting for Cyberpunk 2077. Interesting to discover tabletop storytelling.
Oh, great.
So we do hope that if you are new to role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, that you go out and buy some or get some friends together and play some together. If we can inspire that, that's great.
Yeah. And remember, there's all sorts of games out there to tell different kinds of stories. And that's part of what we do at Roltercast is we play a few more of the esoteric games.
Yeah,
here and
and we
there.
like
Cyberpunk, bit of the Vampire.
we like genre hopping a lot because
we can't make up our minds.
Well, but there's also a whole wealth of role playing games out there to discover, and if this kind of game isn't your thing, well, guess what? There's probably 10 games that are your thing. And
there's at least 10.
Yeah, and so hopefully this will spark your interest. And find the game that's fun for you.
Adventure awaits.
Our focus, as that kind of implies, is on the storytelling aspects of games. If that's your jam, go out there, tell some stories.
Yeah.
We had an announcement coming up. Sean.
We did. Well. First of all, I think, Phil, you kind of buried the lead a bit, but we are potentially heading more into the land of Cyberpunk at least one more time.
Yeah,
once more into the breach.
So. Red, it's worth mentioning here that Red is out. It wasn't when we first got it. Red is out and available on Drive-Thru-RPG. People are starting to get their physical copies now as well. Won't be in Australia until February, but whatever.
No.
I might wait for the reprint, the revisions. But
bloody kookaburras haven't delivered it yet.
But yeah, it's on Drive-Thru-RPG.
What was that?
That's how post happens here in Australia.
Ellen, you know it's kangaroos. They have a pouch. They have a pound.
Well, that's why it's delayed. They couldn't get the kangaroos over.
Wombats are just too slow.
And koalas don't give a fuck.
Oh, shit.
Right,
the free postage is wombat. Oh.
Talk about our collaboration with John
That's
John.
right. I'm getting it. I'm saying it's out there now. Go buy it. It's great. It's on Drive-Thru RPG. Get it. But what that means is there's loads more people in the community, right? It's starting to open up a lot. And we want to be part of that. So we are going to stay doing Red content. So the first thing we're going to do is very shortly we'll be teaming up with John the Wise, who is an awesome Cyberpunk creator. You can find all his stuff on YouTube. And he is going to be running a game for us. It's going to be a 1 or 3 shot, as far as I know.
What about a 2 shot?
No.
1, 2, 3 shot. Something like that. And we will be reprising the little custom setting we have. It will be played out of heaven. And I believe these 3 will be bringing their characters back.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Brutally.
No, Wax is dead. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't kill any of them this time.
You're being facts.
I'm being facts.
Hi,
Yeah, they all
I'm
survived,
Wax's
so-
twin brother.
So
Email.
John was
He's
very
evil.
John was like, is it okay? Like, can I kill your characters? Would that fuck things up? And I think we were all universally like, yeah, sure.
We'll canonize it.
We'll try not-
I like the way he phrased it. If that's how he said it, it's like, I'm going to kill them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. I think that
I
was
love
still that has to be a possibility in Cyberpunk.
Always.
Has
Always.
to be.
As it is
always.
in life.
Yeah, so we're really excited. It's in the works. Don't have an exact date yet, but we're really excited. I'm really excited to build a character and play in a game of Cyberpunk Red with someone else running it. That's going to be really, really fun.
We're going to leave it a surprise on who your character's going to be.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do have some more projects in the works, Cyberpunk related. I can't quite talk about them yet, but keep
Secret
an
squirrels.
eye out
Stay
for them.
on our Twitter account.
Yeah.
Go to
Never leave.
www.twitter.com/babybeardmedia or go to Phil's Twitter page, which is
At Scruff. SKKRU.
It's all in the description of this episode, but go follow us on Twitter to keep up to date with all the new announcements, because we won't be able to announce them during the seasons that happen. Like we won't be able to keep up to date, unfortunately.
Yeah, but there are things that we can reveal. Number one is what next week's episode, which is going to be, which is our interview episode, which we do at the end of every season. We usually talk to a particular creator within the world that we've just explored. Phil, do you want to reveal the people we will be interviewing?
Yeah, we have James Hutt and Cody Pondsmith. So these are 2 of the creators for Cyberpunk Red, both mechanically and lore-wise. So it's going to be really, really exciting to get to chat with them. They have been having some chats with other creators in the community, so they're obviously really keen to talk to the fans in the community about their game. And I'm dying to congratulate them on an amazing release of just this really wicked game, and like a great update to this world. Like, bring it into 2020.
But we have
from
them
2020.
We have them both at the same time, so we can pit them against each other.
Yeah, that's right. So, who's the better writer?
Yeah.
Which of you wrote more?
Yeah, I think it's always really good to have creators and community runners on the show. I think it's really good to see the people who do the really hard work of creating this stuff, like building a whole setting from the ground up and then creating and balancing a system. Holy, that is a lot of work, and just the minutiae of like the various ways all these systems interact. Wow, I think these guys deserve all the kudos they get, and need even more kind of exposure, I think, as well.
And also just getting like kind of the point of view of people that have been immersed in that one thing for months, years. You know what I mean? Like we can kind of flit in and out of this as a hobby or a game, but they're in inside the skin through every aspect of it from start to finish, and to get kind of that idea of like where they come from is just really helpful.
What a cool job to have.
So exciting.
Right?
What a
So
cool job we
exciting,
have.
and that
I know.
they're happy to talk to us.
Yeah.
It really fosters this sense of community and celebration of, hey, we made a thing, you enjoy the thing, and that brings us all kind of together.
I mean, I can't thank RTG enough. Jay Gray, who's their social media ambassador, has been just an amazing guy, like both for us and other people in the community, letting them have an early look at the game, taking the time to answer our questions. Even during this kind of frantic period where they were trying to get the book out, he was just always available and always just so patient and friendly with us, and obviously setting up this interview as well, and then just being so supportive of the content itself, signal boosting it and just being really supportive and complimentary. Just they're great company, and everyone there has been so good to us. So I just think it bears repeating. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Buy your copy of Cyberpunk Red. Don't download it illegally.
Sorry, I thought it was just you going, buy.
Consume. I mean, it is, but also please support these companies. They need your support, they want your support, and they deserve your support. So support them.
Couldn't have done it without them.
If you're excited about 2077 coming out, and who isn't, these are the guys who made this world that made Cyberpunk 2077 possible. They are fans.
It's also something that
2020
they're looking at doing, which is potentially making a 2077 source book.
Cool.
Because they recently, Talsorian posted out a tweet where they said, what would you guys really like to see next? And the ideas were, an Armory, 2077 source book, Night City 2045, and another one. But that was, and the 2077 source book had about almost close to 50% of the vote. So maybe
if you want them to do that, buy the book so that they have a vested interest in doing more.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the beginning, right? So with something like this that comes out, you have the core book, and then we get into the Chrome, we get into the weapons, class books, source books. It's a very exciting time to be into Cyberpunk Red.
And of course, the final thing that we need to mention is what's next for Roll to Cast, which is
let you handle that.
Oh, next season, which is we've let the cat out of the bag a few times, but we can once again officially say it as a group. We are doing the Pulp Cthulhu system by Chaosium Inc., where I'll be taking the role of the Keeper, and I'll be taking Ellen, Phil, Chris, and the gentleman who's been responsible for all the music you've heard on Roll to Cast, Mr. Paul Goodman, will also be a new player. So I have the unenviable task of taking 4 members of the United Nations, because they all come from somewhere completely different,
all with wacky accents.
If you want to hear a Frenchman, a Norwegian, Italian, New Yorker, and an Irish priest
and
together in a room,
yeah. Walk into a pub
and shoot Cthulhu in the face.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be coming in 2 weeks' time. We get the ball running, and it's gonna be something different. I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm happy for all of you to see. We're raring to go.
Yeah, there's more artists, more Rollcast on the horizon. Stick around.
All right. Well, until that time, thank you guys for coming along, and I have been Spitfire James, Sean.
Thank you so much. I've been Sprocket Volkov or Ellen.
I've been Chris Bond, aka Wax.
I've been Phil, the GM.
Subscribe, follow us, enjoy. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye now.
Roll to Cast Feed the Beast is a Baby Beard media production. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and all our podcasts are on Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube, and all good podcatchers. You can support us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/babybeard. Cyberpunk Red and all associated properties are trademark of R. Talsorian Games. Used with permission.